oh shit. Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research here. Thank you all for joining the stream. We saw Midwest out in the chat here. Thank you for joining. It's a great Sunday here. We do have a jam-packed agenda, just letting you know. We did have a busy weekly Palantir video, so I'll talk about that actually briefly. But for our agenda today, we're going to go some housekeeping. There were some comments I saw on the last live stream that were interesting. Now, there's also some pro Palantir NHS articles that I did come across this morning. So I haven't covered this. I don't know if anyone else has either. So these will be interesting. But then the big news leading up to the weekend, we had Shyam's interview. I believe that was posted on Friday, leading up to the RNDF. He flew in from Tel Aviv there, which was interesting, and he noted that specifically. But also we'll talk about S&P inclusion briefly as well. It's related to that interview. And then also the RNDF panels here in 2023 that happened this year. So that's the Reagan National Defense Forum. Alex Karp has been a participant before and spoken there. I did also post a video previously. I'll show that also, that all the clips there with him and Joe Lonsdale. And then he did a Fox interview there too. They're kind of related or almost similar talking points. And we'll just go over some questions at the end there. But let's just take a look at the chat here really quick. Thank you for joining. We got Midwest up on here. Oh, yeah, we got the Rockets, of course, going to the moon. Michael Johnson, thank you, thank you. I know that you guys always like to drop into the live stream. Just let me know how your week has been. I know Cyber Monday just happened. I've been enjoying a new soundbar. We bought a TV a year ago. We upgraded from like 40-something inches to 70, but we did not have a soundbar, so we were just using that speaker there. So feel free to drop in the comments and talk about what you guys got there. I'm not trying to push consumerism, but you know, it's pretty interesting there. Now, the agenda, I already talked about that here, so feel free to reference that earlier in the video. But let's just get into it now here. Now, the housekeeping that I wanted to address. So I know there's not necessarily, there's just so much things happening on YouTube, right? Especially when it comes to Palantir, news articles coming out, everything, right? So just to clear the board here, last week on the live stream, someone basically said I had a very long and drawn out video, waste of time. And I get that. If your first exposure was to me talking about only specific topics, and maybe I do ramble on my own personal kind of style there. However, I don't know if I necessarily waste time on my video uploads, and you're able to cut that down, right? It's just the way that medium works. Now, I do daily Palantir videos. You can check those out. Those are usually very quick and I hope to the point, and covering the articles there. And as investors in a company, I would assume that you're going on your own there and looking and doing your own deeper research there and tying draws together. I try to do that a little bit, but I don't want to taint your own perspective there. Now, I think for that person that made that comment, the best kind of video for you would be the weekly Palantir video that I put on Saturdays. Now, this is kind of a compilation of everything that's happened throughout the week. However, not everything is also covered, so there may be littler news that I didn't even include, or stuff that might have just been missed, and then also things that happened at the end of Friday, I'd say, that haven't made it an early Saturday. So check out that video there if you're someone who just wants it straight to the point and you kind of want to look into things yourself, but you want to know what to look out for. And yeah, thank you all for joining here. I'm seeing a bunch of people starting to join the stream as well. So that was the housekeeping side. And I didn't mention also, we got the live streams on Sundays here. So it's kind of a recap, you could say, on Saturday. However, I do not cover every single little thing because, especially for this week, if you've watched it, there's a lot of little news stories and details. But I'm only going to cover the things that I found most interesting and things that are more recent to the end of the week there. But thank you all for joining. I see a lot of people starting to join the stream here. And yeah, I'll do my best to keep monitoring the chat as well. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the kind comments there. Good morning, Noland, as well. Damn it. Oh, doing a good job. Keep on the same path. Okay. You know what? I think I'm covering all the bases here, right? We're doing the dailies, we're doing the weeklies, and we're doing the live stream. So it's nice to see that. Yeah, definitely. So I know it's not everyone's cup of tea here with the long and short content. Now, just to review that that agenda again here. So I have not covered this yet. Pro Palantir NHS articles. And I didn't even put in the title here because it's in the big news was Shyam's interview with those AIP numbers. So let's just talk about that NHS stuff first. So interestingly, we got this Guardian article. I just woke up and I saw this. I was like, oh, what is this? The title basically caught my attention here. The NHS's deal with the U.S. company raises privacy concerns, right? We all know that title there. Now, but a unified database could be a medical game changer. So I'm like, okay, this sounds like a positive spin here. And honestly, in my opinion, that's the same thing, right? A unified database, especially in the healthcare context, right? The health system doesn't happen in a isolated hospital, right? It does, but full care, right? They're going to send you to an outpatient. Maybe there's follow-ups that have to happen somewhere else. So in the end, healthcare is very, very interconnected between many different entities, and they may not even be within the same network there. So I did highlight a few points here. Essentially what they're talking about, right? They want to set the premise, what's happening with this NHS deal with Palantir and concerns about privacy. Now, they also want to bring up the other point, like, yeah, you could be scared about sharing your data, but there's a reason why these solutions are made. Data is used to make informative decisions, right? And you're also using it to predict now, and for artificial intelligence as well. The more data that you have, the more powerful it can be. Now, there are, of course, downsides to that too, if you're scared about privacy and the infrastructure around that. I think Palantir, and there's a second article here too, I'll just point out, there's a lot of little points that they point out that they can win the hearts and minds of the UK regarding the NHS. Now, I think a lot of them they've actually already done. It's just you don't know necessarily anything about Palantir. And I get it. It's not the main thing on people's minds, but I'll talk about that after. But back to this article here. Yeah, they point out the obvious. Without a powerful data system to crunch through everyone's histories, things can fall apart. If you have your main doctor and he doesn't have a database just to know what happened in the past, or if your doctor changes even within the same practice here, that's important. That's happening to me here. My doctor's leaving the system. However, I'm still living in the same area. So I want to stay within the system, and I'm just going to get a new doctor, but he needs to have access to that new information, or that information that's happened in the past, and ensure that I'm not repeating myself. I'm not an expert in necessarily in diagnosing myself or anything of that sort, or just checking on my health overall. Now, what they also point out here too, which is big, they're saying that the NHS's database lags behind those other rich countries. Now, nothing too specific here, but I think the main point is that if your health system, and you would consider the UK a first world country, you would want to at least be on par with other health systems. Now, when we go talk about costs, everyone's going to talk about the United States and it's exorbitant. But if we talk about certain health systems in the United States, especially in larger cities, there are pretty powerful health systems there, honestly. And we know that the main issue, and if you work in healthcare, it is in the rural areas, more disconnected, less resources. But when you get to the big cities, it's honestly pretty good. And it might depend also on your health system. But maybe in the UK, I'm not an expert here. And, Haley's also on the UK, so she would probably have a way better perspective there on the NHS experience from a patient point of view. But I think it's interesting that they see themselves as behind other rich countries. And they bring up the most important point here, and I think this is a really good example that brings it home to patients possibly. Surgeons sometimes rely on patients to remember and recite their health records. And if you're a surgeon, you are going to most likely, you're going to deal with invasive things that have higher risk. And if you're relying on patients, it's like relying on eyewitnesses, right? And sometimes the environment for that is not ideal, and that is a big risk there if something's wrong. Someone, especially the elderly, maybe they don't necessarily have their best memory now. They don't know all the diagnoses they had, all the prescriptions they've been using, or sometimes they don't remember if they ate something in the morning. I'm not saying it can be that severe, but eating something right before a surgery is a high risk there. And they always tell you not to eat and stuff. So that was just a very hitting close to home example there. And then they're saying, meanwhile, without a competent data system, direct demand supply, much needed beds, and operating theaters lies empty. So yeah, that's another thing. So that's probably a little more disconnected for people. But yeah, you want to have your health system run as efficient as possible, because if you want a waiting list, then I don't know, I guess you don't care. But you basically don't want a waiting list. And that's kind of the goal there. You want to be able to set your appointment and not have to worry about it. You don't need to wait in line for someone else. That's obviously the ideal state. You can be seen exactly when you need to be. But over time, that should improve if Palantir, at least in their pilot series with the different hospitals, has allowed them to show that. Now, this is where it also gets more pro-Palantir here, which is not necessarily pro-Palantir, but it's definitely not trying to bag against them. So they're saying there's two reassuring facts here of why they're not going to steal your data. And we've talked about this a lot in the Palantir community, but I'll just say it. But they should consider two reassuring facts. First, the law stands in the way. Palantir doesn't have legal access. Alex Karp has said this before. He said it on the record, and I believe in the BBC interview there. I know that was pretty chaotic, at least from my understanding, but I know people in the UK say that's pretty typical. And if it should break the law, the Information Commissioner's Office has the power to sue it into oblivion. Yeah, that makes sense. And second, the company lacks incentives for this type of bad behavior. And I think this is bigger. So there's no point of them doing it. So they're saying it's not seeking to own the information encoded in the data sets. It's not a business of analyzing or selling it. Well, yeah, it's not analyzing it for themselves and then selling that information. It's just helping the customer do the analysis and providing software for handling highly sensitive data, such as the CIA. And we know all those things with the military aspect of Palantir. So this honestly is like the biggest point of this article here. They point it out, and it's nice for someone, especially for the Guardian, to say something like this. I'm not entirely sure for the author here, but this is what the Palantir community has been saying all along. And Alex Karp himself already said the first point. And then second point too, it doesn't make sense for them to sell data. They're not a social media company. They're not selling ads. They're not trying to sell information to pharmaceutical companies here. They make money, and this is everything that their reputation stakes on it. They say at the end, lose that reputation and it loses everything. Yeah, they're not a data broker. And then they continue on here. Patients are already suffering from a joined up system. So that's kind of related to the NHS being behind other first world countries here. And patients are the ones in the end who suffer there. Yeah, there may be a bloated administration possibly, or people just don't have the exact processes in place and it's not clear with the data. However, the true end suffering point is going to be the patients and health outcomes. Now, at the very end here, they just want to conclude the article. Palantir is that plumbing around the data. They're the infrastructure here. And it's the government that makes these choices here. And Alex Karp also said this in that BBC interview there with the UK. So this is probably the most pro-Palantir article I've seen regarding the NHS. And it's just interesting that they brought this up here. And for someone who's been following this, of course, these are not new points. But it's good that they're getting it out here. And maybe some folks will stumble upon this and it'll either change their perspective or make them at least neutral on it. And that's the big thing. They want to give them a chance. Now, this is also related to another article I saw this morning. How can Palantir win the hearts and minds to deliver the NHS England's FDP? So they bring up a list of bullet points here, nice and easy. So I'm trying not to talk too long here about this. But yeah, and a lot of these, honestly, I think Palantir already has the reputation for. I think it's more of just making people know about it. And some of these actually really overlap with each other too. So the first one, address privacy concerns. Public trust is paramount. So this is kind of that media part there. They want to address them publicly, make sure that people understand how they're handling the data, right? Make it transparent here. And then emphasizing security measures and adherence to strict privacy regulations. So Palantir already does that. They've talked about that. I think maybe the other narrative on the other side might be muddling that up a bit here. However, getting this into the general public's hands here, at least in the UK side, and understanding what they're doing is a good thing. Now, engage with stakeholders. Now, the level of this is harder from an outsider's perspective, but actively engaging with NHS staff, patients advocacy groups. So we know they've been running pilots there, at least on the medical director side, who've been advocating for the FDP platform and, indirectly Palantir as well. They've probably been actively engaged there, but to the level of staff, I'm not sure, right? To nurses and doctors, I think that's in the philosophy of Palantir and how they talked about other ways that they've implemented with forward deployed engineers. It makes sense that they would work with these people because at the end, they're going to be using the system. Now, we don't know this necessarily, so I would just assume they would follow suit with their previous ways of doing that. But it doesn't hurt to do this even more and ensuring that the end user who's actually using the software is going to get what they need out of it. Now, demonstrate the benefits. Clearly articulate the tangible benefits of the FDP. So this is something that they've tried to do and do. NHS England has also published these kind of things as well. And yeah, basically all you can do is just keep trying to do it. And if you give them a chance here with the FDP platform, they can build these up. And then real world examples and case studies can show the platform's impact. Yeah, so yeah, I think the last article I think that talked about this, they were trying to muddling it up as well here, saying that, oh, these aren't like actual tests here and they're not research kind of approved in the criteria or the way that they were planned out. It was just kind of, well, you're extrapolating these, right? Things like that. So over time, we'll see how these benefits are going to be demonstrated. Now, emphasize local partnerships. So this one also, I think, is kind of, we don't necessarily know the level of it. And we'll see over time if they partner with maybe these smaller local companies and organizations for their commitment to that healthcare system in the UK. I think when they talked about making them an AI hub, so at least as a country, politically, we know Palantir stands behind them, and partnership-wise, we're aligned with the same mission and interest there, and there's no reason to believe otherwise, honestly. And even militarily, you can see that. Now, at what level, that's harder to see. I don't know. I don't know what this looks like at the community level. Maybe at a hospital level, we've seen that with those different pilots there and maybe physicians that have talked about it. But we'll see over time if they're going to make local partnerships a bigger part of it here. Now, supporting the development of data literacy and analytics, yeah, this is a no-brainer no matter where you're going. You just want to make sure it's kind of the same as engaging with the stakeholders, but more on the development side here in using the technology. Now, prioritize data security. This is kind of a similar thing with address privacy concerns. And Palantir continues to do what they need to do. I think it's more of a knowledge gap here for the audience instead. Now, fostering open dialogue, this can be subjective. I thought it was kind of open, at least near the end of it. I know it's been happening in procurement processes. You don't want an open dialogue necessarily, because then you have a chance to sway public opinion, which is against what you want in a procurement process. You want the solution to speak for itself here. But as we got closer to the end, knowing that they're going to win, Palantir, of course, did that BBC interview there, and more articles came out from NHS England regarding their standing behind the FDP and all that, and even bring up Palantir and the FAQ there. So I think now that they've won, this is something that we'll see more of. And then showcase success story. Yeah, they're repeating themselves here, educate the public, collaborate with the experts. So that's how Palantir can win over the hearts and minds of the NHS England Federated Data Platform, delivering it there and making people more comfortable. I think a lot of these points are, they're no-brainers. It's common sense, honestly. And you didn't need a list like this. But it's nice that these are, and this is not new. This was November 21, but I think it's just funny that they consolidated this and repeated themselves. So great. So I see a lot of folks here on the chat. Oh my gosh, much more than I was expecting, of course. Now, for those who are wondering, this is the agenda in the middle. We just finished up the maybe that's clickbait here, but pro Palantir NHS article. And if you came in the middle, the last one that I did was kind of standing for having a connected system. It doesn't necessarily mean that, oh yeah, Palantir is the best in the world, but it's saying that, even though you're giving up some control of your data and people have access to it, maybe they're doing it for a good thing to help you. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. Now, next on the agenda, I think this was the biggest news of the week, at least in my opinion, Shyam's interview with CNBC. So I'm going to try playing a clip here, at least a portion of it. I did a voiceover in my video covering this, at least in the weekly Palantir video, just talking about what he talked about and my points. But let me know if there's interference in the audio side.
Bootcamps that were talked about in the third quarter earnings, these artificial intelligence platform bootcamps. I think there had been an expectation that maybe you would sign on 140 companies in the month of November to these bootcamps. I guess walk me through what they are and how many people, how many companies have shown interest.
Yeah, so these bootcamps, we've rebuilt our entire go-to-market around it because it's really this magical experience where you get your hands on the keyboard for 8 hours and you leave that experience with a production-ready use case. And with even more than that, a deep and intuitive understanding of how do you apply this technology to get real results. More than a proof of concept, actual proof that you can take to your enterprise and get results. And so this has been a profound change for us. And we ended November, we thought we'd do 140. We did it for 200 organizations. We're on track this year to serve 325 organizations with boot camps. And we've really focused on commercial so far this year, particularly focused on U.S. commercial. Next year and into December here, we're really going to be bringing this to the U.S. government as well.
And we saw it in the third quarter re-accelerate growth on the commercial side. It also, I would imagine, lowers your marketing costs and creates a stickier environment in terms of more companies coming on board. Is that what you're continuing to see?
We're continuing to see that. I think one of the most profound effects of, let's call it 2023, the year of reinvention around ChatGPT, is the expectation that software is actually going to work and the accountability that's around that. So people want to leave with 8 hours of effort realizing they can put something in production.
All right. I think that was a very important point here and covered publicly here on CNBC. So we heard the numbers first. I think a lot of people were interested in that, the 140 versus the 200. So I'm not trying to clickbait people, right? I can put that 43%. You just take 60 divided by 140 and you get 43%, right? So there we go. I covered it. You can't get mad at me. But either way, The important thing here is, and I know you guys all know this too, that it's doing better than expected, right? And they're publicly talking about this already. And this is not in the context of a quarterly call here. They're doing it shouting it from the rooftops, essentially, if you're doing it on CNBC. I think this speaks a lot to the confidence of management. So yeah, releasing numbers is always a cool thing, but if you're able to do that, you have to look behind what management thinks about. And it's going to be about perception here, and it's going to be about keeping shareholders at ease, but also ensuring that you're not stepping on customers and making it look like a factory or a farm that you're just trying to get them in and out of. I think that's the important thing to note here. So Cheyenne points out that AIP bootcamps are doing well. And honestly, it's because of the value that they're getting out of it. And you think about your own employment possibly, and maybe you were sent to a conference and it took a few days and you're reviewing maybe some kind of solution here, or it's just a bunch of different technologies that are new on the market. Now, to go somewhere for a boot camp, 8 hours, then you get something that you can bring back to your boss, make yourself look cool, and then your boss will feel cool also because they can create tangible results here. I think that's pretty valuable. And what Cheyenne's saying essentially is that software is working, and you need to be able to feel that. It's nice to be shown the demonstration. You get the demo, right, from like say a consultant or someone that's trying to win your business from a vendor is trying to do that. And they make it look so easy every time in the demonstration. But if you can't do it on your own, because they have the ideal aspects, and I've done this as well. I was working in, I've talked about this too already, but I did data integration side for I'm just drawing a blank here. But yeah, I was doing integration for one of our software SaaS solutions. It was for healthcare systems. And yeah, it was essentially that we showed them the ideal situation here with data, like test data, and then eventually we show them over time with their own data, but that's more of a slow, long, drawn-out process. Here, it kind of is a wha-bam right in front of your face. The first 8 hours you show up, I'm assuming there's got to be some prep work if you're using your own data, but maybe that speaks even louder that you can just show up and then without even prep. So I don't know that aspect there. You could probably ask like a coach strap or someone, but that is the awesome part there. And then the end, I think the end of this interview was spectacular too. I think a lot of folks, at least newer to investing, may have these expectations around S&P inclusion. And, it is a major milestone here. And he points out the right reasons that it's a major milestone. Let's just
actually,
look
more
into
importantly,
it.
the broader defense tech ecosystem. It's been 45 years since an actual defense company, one not born out of mergers and spin-outs and other financial engineering, but a new venture formation has been added to the S&P 500. The primes, they were added on March 4th, 1957, which is the year that the indice was created. So that doesn't feel like American dynamism to me. I think it feels more like the sclerotic nature of European capital markets. And I think we should bring the best of America to this. And I hope we would be the first of many of these hundreds of defense companies that have an opportunity to participate.
We make intention.
Oh, there we go. Awesome. So yeah, that ending point there from Shyam regarding S&P. So earlier she asked about what his thoughts on that, and honestly, it's they're already eligible, so that's the biggest hurdle there. And for them to join is not necessarily the hugest catalyst in the world because everyone knows about it now. It's not a surprise. I think what he's saying though is much more important for the broader markets here and the path forward that Palantir is setting for a lot of other companies. And I know a lot of people think about Anduril, which was founded by ex-Palantir as well. So just making sure that since the primes, he wanted to note out that Palantir is really one of the true new defense technologies not born out of financial engineering to eventually join the S&P here. And that's also big for them too if they join the S&P, not necessarily stock-wise, but also just for their business fundamentals. Some people don't want to do business with someone who's not as reputable, right? And being in the Standard & Poor's is just another data point there that helps. But I did want to point out for the S&P inclusion here, I just put it briefly, but it's a really quick article. Palantir is not going to be in it in the next one here for December, and I don't think anyone was really expecting them to. At least for me, I've talked about it before. Where I'm not expecting them to join immediately, right when they hit their profitability, and then we got the new shuffling around here, and Palantir is going to be in it. So just so people know, they're not going to be it for December of 2023. So expect some time in 2024, and we'll see what plays out. I mean, they're going to have more quarters of profitability, I'm assuming, based off how management has been with the business so far and being prudent and ensuring that margins are maintained there. So I just wanted to make sure this was known to everyone and put it out here on the live stream. So All right, so let's go to that next point here on the agenda. So RNDF Panels 2023 Fox interview. So this was the major news of the weekend here. And for folks who don't know, that's the Reagan National Defense Forum, and Alex Karp has participated in that in the past. So if we go here, I put together this video last night, everything Karp and Joe Lonzo said at RNDF 2023. So all I did was I just clipped out from the Reagan Foundation's YouTube channel. So if you do want to support them and look at it directly on their site here, just go to Reagan Foundation. Now, they didn't clip out individual speakers. This is a panel. So you do have to remember this is in the context of, responses to other things and to specific questions and polls. So if you just bring that up here. Oh. Yes. Here we go. So you can just look at the pictures and you can know which one they're at. But I did put the title in the comments here of my video, and you can see which ones it is. So you have Joe Lonzo's face on this thumbnail for overlooking Monroe. And they do talk a lot about foreign policy and politics. So I don't know if this is everyone's cup of tea. This is not investor focused. However, I think for investors, it's important to note what the company you're invested in is saying out there in public, right? It is going to affect you. And then you got Alex Karp's here. Over here. So there were some great clips, I'd say. And this is probably his philosophical side as well as, being an academic, there is debate that's important there, right? And that's what academia is actually about. It's not saying that I know all the answers and this is truth. It's more about the scientific method of over time, right? Things are proven wrong, things are proven right, and evidence is gathered. But you do have to debate that, especially even for academics here. And this is a softer science, right? If you're talking about policy and what ifs, and you're talking about the military concept as well. So there are actual data points here that are important. And I did want to bring up at least, we'll just show one clip. There's a lot of different clips here. We got Joe talking a lot about the border as well, surveillance, privacy. And then you got Alex Karp here. There's going to be a lot of political talk here. I know it's different than what the channel covers since we're focused on the business side, but let's just play this.
This is our effort in Ukraine is actually making it less likely that China will invade Taiwan.
The argument is
you have to make it from a national interest.
There's true and persuasive. You're making a true argument that's not persuasive to people I would talk to.
Make it about deterrence and defense.
If you make the argument to the American people, which we all support, that by winning in Ukraine, we are not only going to hurt Russia, we're going to hurt China, but we're going to do it in a way where we learn lessons that give us military and economic superiority over China, you will see Americans follow it. But the argument that is being made now is we do not show people either in Israel or in Ukraine what's actually happening on the battlefield. Then we make this kind of argument when instead we should be saying we have the moral superiority, and the way the Ukrainians won on the battlefield, we are going to learn those lessons, we are going to import them to America, and we are going to scare the bejeebers out of China. That's an argument Americans will follow.
Yeah, that is very interesting to see a CEO of a company say these kind of things. Now, taking a stand is not new for Palantir. We've known this, and being pro-Western and participating at these kind of forums here. And Karp has been here before at the RNDF, and it's along the similar lines. Nothing new here. Supporting Ukraine as well as Israel, and then just any Western allies and U.S. interest. Now, he talks about also morality and the high ground here, and that's pretty interesting to talk about, saying that you're right morally. But I think what's important here for investors, especially amongst all the political talk, is saying that we're taking a stand on the mission here. You have a lot of companies that talk about what they believe in and they stand for. However, taking action and doing that, I think it's important, and taking a side. So when you're playing on the border, walking back and forth like, oh, we don't want to get mad. We don't want the CCP to get mad at us and things, and it's going to hurt our business. That makes sense, right? Especially if you're like in Apple, and you have a lot of sales there that you want to keep on going. And I'm not saying they're necessarily the worst people in the world for doing this, right? It is business in the end. However, the way that Palantir does business, at least, they want to align also with that customer base. And we know that it limits their total addressable market, right? You're not going to do business with Russia and China for sure, and then people against U.S. interests. So I think it's important that any investor here, so you don't have to watch my video. I just wanted to make it easier at least to show where Joe talks and then also where Alex Karp talks about. But at least this microcosm of what I showed is more of the nature of what you're going to see. So it's not going to be talking about numbers and investments per se. Well, they do talk about actually the DoD and the 1% that he brings up with the budgeting there for software. So he just wants to continually make a case for at least whoever watches this. I know that not a lot of folks are on the channel there for the Reagan Foundation. It's not too much, and it's the live stream, so it's pretty long, but it's out there that Palantir and their beliefs of everything, I guess, politically when it comes to Western interests. There we go. And then I think this is probably much more palatable for people. So you don't have to watch the whole live stream or watch my clip here. I think if you see this interview with Fox. So I know everyone has their political leanings either way, and we know where Fox is. However, Karp here talks about the things that are important.
The Russians invaded. Why did you feel it was so important to go there and for Palantir to be there? What is Palantir doing in Ukraine?
Well, look, Palantir was built to defend the West. You may not have learned that the West is a noble, endearing, and potentially durable project if you have been imbibing the vaporous, deadly flames of many elite institutions. But at Palantir, we believe in the West. We believe in defending the West. We believe the West should have the best software, the best AI. And I went there because when Russia invades the sovereign territory of Ukraine, or when Hamas commits acts of terrorism, the West must stand and show that it's strong, or these things will become part and parcel of our everyday life. And this should not be a controversial position, and quite frankly, I think it is not a controversial position. Unfortunately, too few of us stand up and say, this is what we believe, we're going to put our company behind it, and if you do not want to work at our company or you do not want to work with us, that is perfectly fine. But the values that America embodies of freedom, liberty, justice, meritocracy, that everyone gets a reasonably fair shot, are those values are at stake when people aggress and transgress, and more importantly, we do nothing, we say nothing, we do not articulate why we think this, and we, quite frankly, do not defend ourselves. And in the modern world, defense is hardware plus software plus AI. What does that mean? How do you find a target? How do you find a target? Say you had a Coke can in a desert. How do you find that Coke can? How do you put ammunition against it? How many times do you miss? Can you do this safely? How do you get the general that is an idiot and protect him while making sure you take out the general that is smart and unpopular? How do you make sure you don't do this next to your assets, next to civilians?
Yeah, so check out this Fox interview. I think it sums up well kind of the talking points and the perspective that Alex Karp wanted to show at RNDF. So he really talks about standing with the West, picking a side here, and it's important. And he does call out corporations essentially doing that jump over if they can either play both sides there. But I think what's also important for investors is the kind of use case that he pointed out here. And we've talked about this also in regards to Ukraine, where they talked about targeting and maybe finding something and then identifying certain folks. And you're playing 3D chess here, where you're not necessarily trying to just kill all targets, right? You want to take all information at hand. He talked about the dumb general and also the smart general. If your adversary has a very proficient, strong person on their side, you want to take them out. And if you want to create instability within or create confusion on their forces, you want to protect that person. So it's 3D chess here, right? It's not as simple as just kill all. And that's kind of a weird thing to say, but we're talking about in the context of war here. So Palantir is really trying to play that next level of military tactics here and talking about it here publicly on Fox. So these are things that he can obviously say, and I'm sure, especially in regards to Israel and Hamas conflict and also Ukraine and Russia, there's things that they can't talk about. And we slowly get these nuggets here of what they're trying to work on. So we know majorly that it's going to be in that targeting aspect. So it's always a good example here to bring up, and one that we can all kind of understand ourselves, finding a Coke can in the desert. So essentially Palantir gathers so much, not gathers, but they work with so much data information, and then also the analyst or the operator on their side. And they're able to kind of put the clues together to get them closer and closer to finding that Coke can. So that's how powerful AI can be. And he also brought up too in the panel, I think, just talking about AI, it's important for the West because we know that China, at least for the military side. So when I talk about China, I'm not talking about the people, and those are regular everyday folks and civilians. But when we're talking about the government and their military tactics, AI and their motivators aren't necessarily the same, right? They have internal surveillance. And if they're trying to do targeting, sometimes they just have the resources to expend and not need to innovate because they can have a bunch of people scour through the data and then finally get that information sent over to them. While in the West, we know headcount is definitely not the highest priority right now. And we've seen lots of studies and news about the West and the United States having a hard time getting more and more folks into the military side of things. And it could be a PR thing, but either way, artificial intelligence is supposed to help with that gap there, especially when your adversary can't keep up with, we can't keep up with our adversary's manpower there. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's just a little taste of what happened at the Reagan National Defense Forum here. So like I said, go check out their channel if you want to watch the whole context of those lives. And you'll see the pictures of Joe Lonsdale and Alex Karp there, so you know which ones to look out for if you care. But there's also other people here that you can listen to. And also I have mine where I compiled I already changed the channel, but I have mine where I compiled all the clips for Joe Lonsdale and also Alex Karp here on the channel. So check that out if you would like. Now we're on to the last point of the agenda here. So on the screen, Q&A. I know the chat, it's early morning. I get it. It's Sunday, right? So if you have any questions, just let me know. But if there's nothing crazy here, I'm just going to bring up what I have since I haven't shown it in a second. There we go. Okay. Oh, webcam. I guess you guys do want to see my face. I don't know. It's pretty ugly, especially on a Sunday morning, but who knows? Maybe over time. We'll see. Thanks so much for going deeper into the fact that the officers were either tax selling or converting them BAs. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the big thing. I think folks just want to know the facts. Like, even if someone was selling out all their position, and there were some folks too, if you do look at those Form 4s, so that's the Statement of Change in Beneficial Ownership, there are people who did sell out everything. But for context, some people are leaving as well, or they have a smaller amount of shares. I would say what's more important is the significance of the person. Now, let's see. I'm thinking either third or fourth quarter. Oh, yeah, so that's in reference to the S&P 500. Okay, yeah, later in the year, that's possible. I have no idea, and I think what I care about, at least as an investor, is that they qualify, they're eligible. Now, when it's actually official, that will be interesting, though, to see how things react, because I don't know if things are going to react, at least day of, or at least when it's announced. RNDF was another proud moment for shareholders. Yeah, I would say so, too. For Palantir shareholders, just being out in the open and having the CEO talk there, especially for what they stand for, and this is not new news, so it's not like this is the first time he's ever done it, but I think it's always great when Alex Karp has a chance to showcase the philosophy of Palantir, how they do business, because it really shows the way that they operate as a company, that they're going to do what they think is right, even if it's not necessarily the most business savvy thing, right? If you're limiting your market, that's the biggest thing you can do. You're never going to serve a Chinese organization, I'm assuming, or a Russian one. Then, yeah, you've already cut the huge potential of a tech company that if, say you were an Apple, maybe a Google or something like that, you want to get access to over 1 billion people in the world. It's part of your business model. However, for Palantir, they're going to stand with what they think is right. Let's see here. 26K for sure. Wow, someone's got a crap ton of shares. No, it's Monday. Yeah, for some folks, it might be. No, it's Monday. Today's Sunday, right? Yeah, even I think New Zealand or around that area, it's around 4 p.m. Central Time that they become Monday, I believe. Oh, no, that's market hours. Okay, just kidding. Yeah, so it might be Monday for some of you folks. Oh, in Australia. Nice to see you. Oh, wow, traveling everywhere, Michael. Still 10:37 p.m. Sunday in the Philippines. Yeah, so we're at that point where it's going to be technically Monday, Sunday, and for those, I'm just going to really point out quick then, since we made it to the end of the stream, this was the live stream for Sunday here. Thank you all for joining. It's always great to have you guys on here, honestly. This is the one where I can kind of ramble on a bit, but for those, I'm just going to put at the end also, because for housekeeping at the beginning, some folks were like, oh my God, he's so long and drawn out here, and I get it. These live streams, I can kind of ramble on a bit, but just check out the channel. I have daily videos. These are pretty quick, sometimes less than 5 minutes, less than 3 minutes. And then we also have the weekly video where I just kind of rapid fire. This latest one here was rapid fire. Honestly, there was so much to cover. And even I didn't get everything, or I got everything from the dailies, but also there were a few stories. I think the Shyam interview, as well as the Dan Ives, he was doing a couple interviews with some YouTubers. We got Tom Nash and Amit. I also put that here. So just wanted to make this all aware here. We got the Sunday live streams, and I'm going to close it out for today. But thank you all for joining. I appreciate you guys always stopping by on a Sunday, right? It's crazy. And I'm just some random dude talking here. But I'll see you all in the next videos throughout the week.